Love isn't always what it seems. When a man truly cares, his feelings don't always show up in the way you expect. Sometimes the deeper his love runs, the more confusing his actions become. He might pull away when things are going well. He might seem lost in thought when you're expecting warmth and affection. He may overcompensate with grand gestures when all you wanted was a quiet conversation. And here's the truth most women miss. These moments are not signs that he's falling out of love. In fact, they're often proof that his feelings are stronger than ever. A man in love faces battles you can't always see. He wonders if he's enough for you. He worries about losing you, and sometimes that fear makes him withdraw. He longs to impress you, yet he's terrified of failure. And when he opens up, no matter how awkward or imperfect, it's his way of saying, "I trust you with my heart." In this video, you'll discover the hidden signs of a man deeply in love, the moments that reveal more than words ever could. By the end, you'll know how to read his silence, his distance, and his doubts. And you'll understand why these confusing behaviors are often the clearest signs of all. Have you noticed your partner acting distant but realized later it was because he cared deeply? Or maybe he's shown his love in unexpected ways. Moments that didn't seem meaningful at first, but now you know they were. As I reveal these hidden signs, pay attention to the ones that resonate most with you. Which one describes your relationship best? Is it his protective nature? His moments of silence? Or maybe the way he goes out of his way to impress you? If you recognize one of these signs, drop the number in the comments. Mark a 3, that's him. Or share which trait you admire most about your partner. Your story might just be the inspiration someone else needs to understand their own relationship better. Tien. He fears losing you more than he shows. You've seen it before. The man you love suddenly becomes distant. He used to text you first thing in the morning, but now his replies take hours. He used to linger in conversations, but now he seems lost in his own thoughts. The warmth you once felt feels like it's slipping away. And that's when the questions start. Is he losing interest? Is he seeing someone else? Have I done something wrong? But here's the truth that few women realize. When a man loves you deeply, his greatest fear isn't losing control. It's losing you. And sometimes, that fear shows up in the most confusing ways. A man doesn't always express this fear with words. Instead, it appears in subtle behaviors that are easy to misinterpret as disinterest. He may start checking in more often, but not in a sweet romantic way. Rather, in a way that feels slightly anxious or possessive. He may ask where you are or who you've been spending time with, not because he doubts your loyalty, but because the thought of losing you shakes him to his core. Other times, this fear looks different. Instead of holding on tightly, he might pull away. Not because he's moving on, but because he's overwhelmed by just how much you mean to him. This is the paradox of love. The more deeply a man feels for you, the more vulnerable he becomes. Vulnerability is something most men are never taught to handle. In a man's mind, love isn't just about what he gains. It's about what he stands to lose. When he realizes that your presence brings him a sense of calm he didn't know he needed, that your smile feels like home, that you're not just someone he enjoys being with, you're someone he needs, everything changes. Now there's something at stake, and the deeper he falls, the more that fear grips him. He might start second-guessing himself. Am I enough for her? Can I really make her happy long-term? What if she wakes up one day and realizes she deserves someone better? Men rarely voice these thoughts. Instead, their fear manifests in ways that confuse you. Moments of silence, withdrawal, or even frustration. He's not angry at you. He's angry at the possibility of losing you. This is where many women misinterpret what's happening. When a man steps back emotionally, it's easy to assume he's drifting away, but in many cases, he's just trying to steady himself. He's overwhelmed by emotions he's never learned to manage. This is where Stoic wisdom offers a powerful reminder. Fear isn't always about weakness. Sometimes fear is a reflection of what we value most. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." A man consumed by thoughts of losing you isn't careless. He's invested. His anxiety reveals just how much you mean to him. So how do you respond when a man starts to pull away or show signs of insecurity? The answer isn't to chase or overcompensate. It's to give him space to process, without feeding his doubts. If he seems withdrawn, resist the urge to demand explanations right away. Instead, let him feel your presence without pressure. Small, simple gestures, a thoughtful message, a gentle smile, or an act of kindness can ground him far better than confrontation. If he starts asking more questions about where you are or who you're with, don't respond defensively. Instead, reassure him without justifying yourself. His questions aren't about control. They're about quieting his own fears. Most importantly, focus on your own emotional stability. Stoics teach that true strength comes from mastering your mind, not controlling others. When you remain calm and grounded, you offer him something powerful. A reminder that love doesn't have to feel overwhelming. And here's something remarkable. When a man feels secure, when he sees that his love isn't driving him to lose control, but instead making him stronger, that's when he loves you hardest. He'll step forward again, but this time with more certainty. His affection will feel steady, not anxious. His gestures will feel meaningful, not rushed. He'll stop second-guessing himself because he'll see what he's been afraid to believe all along. That you love him, not because of what he does, but because of who he is. This is the kind of love that doesn't just survive, it thrives. And it's the kind of love that can only happen when you recognize the fear beneath his silence, the love behind his hesitation, and the courage it takes for a man to admit in his own way that his heart is in your hands. 2. His silence doesn't mean he's uninterested. Silence can be unsettling. When a man you love goes quiet, it's easy to feel the weight of uncertainty. The conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel forced. His once enthusiastic texts seem cold. He used to share his thoughts without hesitation, but now you're left wondering what changed. The silence feels heavy, and in that emptiness, doubt creeps in. Is he losing interest? Is he pulling away? Did I say something wrong? When a man falls deeply in love, silence doesn't mean he's lost interest. It means he's thinking. Men process emotions differently. When love strikes hard, it doesn't just make him happy. It makes him reflect. He questions himself, his future, and whether he's truly capable of being the man you deserve. His silence isn't cold. It's his mind racing with thoughts he doesn't know how to share. He's replaying conversations in his head, analyzing your words, questioning his own actions. He's wondering if he's moving too fast or if he's said too much. He's measuring his own value against what he believes you need. And here's what makes it even more confusing. The deeper his feelings grow, the quieter he may become. Not because he doesn't care, but because caring this much feels overwhelming. Men aren't taught how to navigate vulnerability. Society trains them to be strong, controlled, and composed. So when emotions start to build, instead of expressing them, many men retreat. They step back, not to create distance, but to find balance within themselves. This silence isn't rejection, it's protection. Not for him, but for you. He's holding back because he doesn't want to say the wrong thing. He doesn't want his insecurities to show. He's afraid that if he reveals how much you mean to him, you'll see a side of him he's still learning to understand. If you've ever felt the sting of his silence, know this: it's rarely about you. It's about him grappling with emotions that feel unfamiliar and powerful. And this is where you have a choice: to fill the silence with doubt, or to recognize it for what it truly is, love processing itself quietly. So how do you respond when a man goes silent? The answer isn't to chase him, demand answers, or flood him with questions. That pressure will only make him retreat further. Instead, give him space, but not absence. Stay present, but without expectation. A thoughtful text that says, "I know you've got a lot on your mind. I'm here when you're ready," can be far more powerful than an emotional confrontation. Don't let his silence become your storm. The Stoics teach us that peace comes not from controlling others, but from controlling how we respond. When you stay grounded, calm, confident, and secure, you become his anchor. That quiet strength sends a powerful message. I trust you. I trust us. In time, he'll return, and when he does, it won't be forced. He'll speak when he's ready, and when he does, his words will carry more depth and sincerity. He'll open up not because you demanded it, but because he felt safe enough to let you in. This is what makes love with a strong man so powerful. His silence isn't emptiness. It's a reflection of how deeply he's feeling. And when he finally speaks, it's because he knows those feelings are real. So if you find yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a message that doesn't come, or lying awake wondering why he's grown distant, remember this: silence doesn't mean absence. It often means he's fighting a battle you can't see, a battle within himself, not about whether he loves you, but about whether he's ready to let you see just how deeply he does. And when he's ready, he will. Not because you pushed him, but because you gave him space to find his way back to you. 3. He overcompensates when he feels insecure. A man's love doesn't always look the way you expect. Sometimes it shows up in ways that feel overwhelming, not because he's too confident, but because deep down, he's unsure if he's enough. Imagine this. You've been dating someone for a while. Things are going well, calm, steady, and full of those quiet moments that make you feel safe. Then, out of nowhere, his behavior changes. He's suddenly booking extravagant dinners, buying expensive gifts, and planning surprise weekends away. At first it seems sweet, romantic even. But something feels off. The gestures seem forced, almost as if he's trying to prove something. This isn't just about generosity. It's about insecurity. When a man feels like he's failing, or worse, that he's not measuring up to the man he believes you deserve, he may start overcompensating. He's not doing this because he thinks gifts will fix everything. He's doing it because deep down, he's afraid that without those grand gestures, you might see through him, that you'll realize his flaws, his doubts, and the cracks in his confidence. For some men, this pattern begins when they start to compare themselves to others. He notices the way you talk about a coworker's success, or he overhears you praising a friend's husband for being attentive or thoughtful. Even if you meant nothing by it, those words stick with him. Suddenly, he's asking himself questions he can't answer. Am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Instead of confronting those insecurities directly, he throws himself into proving his worth. More flowers, more dinners, more effort. The irony is that the more he pushes, the more disconnected things feel. Because what he's giving you isn't love, it's his fear disguised as affection. Men are often raised to believe that their value comes from what they do, their ability to fix things, solve problems, and provide. So when a man senses he's failing in those areas, he panics. And in that panic, he tries to make up for what he thinks is missing. This is where Stoic wisdom offers a powerful reminder. True strength isn't about doing more. It's about understanding what truly matters. A man caught in this cycle isn't weak. He's lost in the belief that love has to be earned. In his mind, if he's not constantly showing his value, he's at risk of losing you. If you've ever been on the receiving end of this, you know how exhausting it feels. His constant gestures may leave you feeling guilty, as if no matter how much you appreciate him, it's never enough to calm his anxiety. So how do you handle this? First, resist the urge to push him away. His overcompensation isn't a reflection of who you are. It's a battle he's fighting within himself. Instead of pulling back, offer him something more powerful than reassurance. Give him stability. Instead of responding to his grand gestures with excitement, respond with calmness. When he surprises you with an expensive gift, show gratitude, but remind him that it's his presence, not his presence, that means the most. If he starts over-planning, gently shift the focus back to connection. A quiet evening at home, a heartfelt conversation, or a simple walk together. These moments remind him that your love isn't conditional on his ability to impress you. And when he seems overwhelmed, remind him that you see him, not for what he does, but for who he is. Men rarely say this out loud, but one of their greatest fears is feeling like they're not enough. The more they care, the stronger that fear becomes. A man may mask his insecurity with grand gestures, but what he's really searching for is something far simpler: the quiet reassurance that his love is enough. When you recognize this, everything changes. Instead of feeling frustrated by his efforts, you'll see them for what they are, a reflection of how deeply he wants to matter to you. And when he starts to see that your love isn't something he has to win, that his presence alone is what makes you feel safe, cherished, and valued, that's when his gestures stop feeling forced. They become natural, genuine, meaningful. Because true love isn't measured in what he gives you. It's felt in the quiet certainty that he's already enough. 4. He craves your admiration more than your affection. A man in love may hold you close, whisper sweet words, and show tenderness. But there's something he desires even more than your affection: your admiration. He may not say it outright, but he's always watching for it. When you smile proudly after he fixes something in the house, when your eyes light up as he shares an idea, when you mention how impressed you are with the way he handles challenges, those moments linger in his mind longer than you realize. For a man, admiration feels like oxygen. It strengthens him, grounds him, and fuels his desire to become better. Even the most confident men quietly crave it. The man who shrugs off your compliments often remembers them better than you think. He replays those moments in his head, the way you admired his leadership, praised his kindness, or recognized his hard work. Each word stays with him, feeding his sense of purpose. And this need runs deeper than ego. For a man, admiration is tied to identity. He wants to feel like he's not just someone you care about, but someone you deeply respect, someone you're proud to stand beside. Affection may warm his heart, but admiration makes him feel capable, like he's truly adding value to your life. This is why a man who feels unsure of his worth often works harder to impress you. He doesn't just want you to love him. He wants to know you believe in him. And when that belief feels uncertain, he may go to greater lengths to prove himself, staying late at work, pursuing bigger goals, or pushing himself harder than usual. Some men show this through bold efforts, surprising you with thoughtful gifts, or taking the lead in stressful situations. Others display it in quieter ways, sharing knowledge about a topic they're passionate about or offering advice when they're feeling overwhelmed. In both cases, what he's really asking is, do you see me? Do you believe in me? When a man feels that admiration, something shifts. He stands taller, his energy rises, and he feels stronger in your presence. It's not because he's feeding his pride, it's because your respect gives his actions meaning. Men often tie their self-worth to their ability to provide, not just in financial terms, but in the stability and strength they bring to the relationship. When he feels that his efforts go unnoticed or unappreciated, his confidence takes a hit. This is where frustration can build. If he's trying to impress you and senses you're distant, or worse, if he feels like you're comparing him to someone else, he may start pulling away. Not out of anger, but because disappointment has drained his sense of purpose. Even a confident man can feel defeated if he starts questioning whether you value the things he brings into your life. For Guy, a man, admiration isn't about hearing praise for every little thing. It's about feeling that his presence, his strength, his character, his ambition is seen and appreciated. The best way to offer this isn't through constant compliments, but through quiet recognition. When he's sharing an idea, pay attention. When he's explaining something he's passionate about, show curiosity. When he's quietly working hard to make life easier for you, let him know you notice. A simple, "I love how you handled that," or "I'm proud of you for pushing through" carries more weight than you may realize. If he's distant, it may not be because he's lost interest. Sometimes, he's quietly questioning whether he's still making a difference in your life. The Stoics understood this well. A person's sense of purpose is often tied to their ability to create value. For men, that value is often reflected in the way you see them. So if you want to strengthen his love for you, remind him of his strength. Show him that his presence isn't just something you enjoy, it's something you admire. Admiration doesn't just make a man feel loved, it makes him feel worthy of that love. And when he feels that, his love will deepen in ways you never expected. Chapter 5. He may test your commitment without realizing it. Have you ever felt like a man was pulling away just when things seemed to be going well? One moment he's warm, engaged, and affectionate, and then suddenly he's distant. Conversations that once flowed naturally now feel strained. The connection that felt so effortless seems to have hit an invisible wall. When this happens, it's easy to assume the worst, that he's lost interest or is questioning the relationship. Yet often, something far deeper is happening. When a man starts to care deeply about you, he may test your commitment, not intentionally, but instinctively. This isn't manipulation. It's self-protection. The moment he realizes how much you mean to him, fear sets in. Fear that he's more invested than you are, that he's misreading your feelings, or that the security he started to feel could be ripped away at any moment. Instead of expressing that fear, he may pull back. He won't say, "I'm scared of getting hurt," or "I'm worried you don't feel the same way." Instead, he might create distance, not because he's drifting away, but because he's waiting to see if you'll reach for him. This is why some men go quiet after a deep conversation, or retreat emotionally after a particularly vulnerable moment. The deeper his feelings grow, the more vulnerable he becomes, and that vulnerability feels risky. Men are often taught to mask uncertainty with silence or coldness. While women may seek connection when they feel unsure, many men instinctively withdraw to protect themselves. This behavior isn't always logical, it's emotional. Deep down, he's testing a question he may not even realize he's asking. If I step back, will she notice? If I stop initiating, will she still want me? If I act colder, will she care enough to pull me back in? This subconscious test often stems from past pain. Maybe he once cared deeply for someone who took his love for granted. Or perhaps he was vulnerable before and ended up feeling rejected. Now, he's searching for reassurance. not through words, but through your response. So how do you handle this without falling into frustration or self-doubt? First, resist the urge to panic. His withdrawal doesn't mean the connection you've built is gone. In many cases, it's proof that his feelings for you have grown stronger than he's comfortable admitting. Instead of confronting him with questions like, "What's wrong?" or "Why are you being distant?" pause. Give him space without disappearing. When he senses that you're still calm, still present, and still invested, his walls will come down. He'll realize he doesn't need to create distance to know you care, because your quiet strength says it all. This is where the wisdom of Stoicism becomes powerful. The Stoics believed that true strength lies in mastering your emotions, not by suppressing them, but by controlling your response to uncertainty. When a man steps back, your ability to remain composed sends a powerful message. I see you, I trust you, and I'm not afraid to give you the space you need. That calmness is what draws him back, not desperation, not chasing, and certainly not demands for answers. When he realizes that you're not shaken by his silence, he'll feel safer. Safe enough to return, this time more sure of his own feelings. And when he comes back, and he will, resist the urge to punish him for his distance. Instead, meet him with warmth. He's not returning because he lost interest. He's returning because he needed to know his heart was safe with you. A man doesn't test your commitment because he's cruel or careless. He does it because love makes him feel vulnerable, and vulnerability scares him more than he's willing to admit. So if you feel him pulling back, remember this. His silence isn't rejection, it's fear. And when you stay grounded, confident, and calm, you become the answer to that fear without even having to say a word. 6. He struggles to express love in the right way. Love doesn't always arrive in the form you expect. A man can love you deeply, yet leave you feeling unsure, even unseen. Not because he doesn't care, but because the way he shows love doesn't always align with the way you receive it. He may not say the right words at the right time. He may not instinctively know when you need comfort, or when you're longing for him to simply sit beside you in silence. Instead, he might express love through actions that feel out of sync. Fixing things you didn't ask to be fixed, offering solutions when you only wanted to be heard, or filling your weekend with plans when all you craved was rest. This isn't neglect. It's not indifference either. Often it's love, just delivered in a language that feels unfamiliar. Men are taught from an early age to express value through action, to do something when they care. So when a man loves you, he may naturally lean toward fixing, solving, or providing, instead of expressing what's in his heart. He might surprise you with thoughtful gestures, cleaning your car without being asked, repairing something at home, or quietly taking on extra responsibility to make your life easier. Yet in his mind, these actions say far more than words ever could. For some women, these gestures feel distant, practical, rather than personal. It's easy to wonder, why doesn't he just tell me how he feels? Or, why can't he show love the way I need it? Yet for him, those quiet efforts are his way of saying, I see you. I care about you. I want to make your life better. This is where frustration can build. When a man feels his love is going unnoticed, or worse, misunderstood, he may double down. Instead of giving you the closeness you're craving, he may focus even more on actions, thinking, if I just try harder, she'll see how much I care. The harder he tries to fix it, the more disconnected you may feel. This pattern isn't about stubbornness, it's about uncertainty. A man may feel unsure about expressing his emotions openly, especially if past experiences have taught him that vulnerability can backfire. So instead of risking rejection, he defaults to what feels safe, doing things rather than saying things. the Stoics taught that love isn't just about expressing affection. It's about understanding intention. A man's way of showing love may look different from what you expected, yet if you learn to read those quiet efforts, you'll see that his heart is more invested than you realize. If he buys you something extravagant when all you wanted was a heartfelt conversation, he's not ignoring your needs. He's choosing what feels safest for him. If he spends hours planning a weekend trip when all you wanted was a quiet evening together, it's not because he's out of touch. It's because he's unsure how to meet you where you are, so he defaults to action. This is where patience becomes powerful. Instead of criticizing his approach, guide him toward what you need. If you long for deeper conversations, invite him into those moments. If you need comfort rather than solutions, tell him, not with frustration, but with warmth. A simple phrase like, "I just need you to listen right now," can create a shift. Men are problem solvers by instinct. They default to fixing, because it's how they've been taught to add value. When you help him understand that your heart doesn't always need answers, sometimes it just needs presence, he'll start to see love through a new lens. And when he realizes that your connection doesn't require him to be perfect, he'll stop trying to overcompensate and start showing up with more authenticity. His love may not always arrive in the right way. It may show up quietly, wrapped in gestures you didn't expect, or efforts that seem misplaced. Yet beneath those moments lies a simple truth. His actions, no matter how imperfect, are his way of saying, "You matter to me." When you recognize that, frustration fades. You'll begin to see that his efforts, even when they miss the mark, are rooted in something real. A desire to love you, protect you, and build something that lasts. And when you acknowledge those gestures, when you say, "I see what you're trying to do, and it means a lot," you'll unlock something powerful. His love will start to feel less like effort and more like ease. Less like performance and more like presence. Because a man doesn't just want to love you. He wants to know that the way he's loving you is enough. And when he feels that, that's when he loves you with everything he has. 7. He feels pressure to be enough for you. A man in love carries a weight he rarely talks about, the pressure to be enough. Even when things seem steady, this quiet tension follows him. He wonders if he's providing enough, supporting enough, or achieving enough to keep you happy. He might not say it out loud, but it's there, a constant whisper in his mind. When a man cares deeply, he's not just thinking about your relationship in the present. He's projecting into the future. He's calculating whether his efforts are strong enough to build something lasting. Whether his career, his mindset, or his ability to handle challenges will meet the standards he believes you deserve. This pressure doesn't always show up the way you'd expect. Sometimes, it surfaces as overworking. He pours himself into his career, convinced that success will prove his worth. Other times, it reveals itself through withdrawal. He becomes quieter, more introspective, as if he's trying to figure out his place in your life. And in some moments, this pressure triggers frustration, not because he's upset with you, but because he's battling his own self-doubt. Men are wired to measure their value through what they can offer, not just in material ways, but in how secure, stable, and capable they appear. When he feels like he's falling short, even if you haven't said a word, that anxiety builds. He may start comparing himself to other men, questioning whether he's ambitious enough, smart enough, or emotionally present enough to make you feel fulfilled. If he believes you're growing faster than he is, in your career, in your mindset, or in your confidence, that doubt deepens. He won't always express this directly. Instead, he may avoid certain conversations, steering away from future plans or dodging talks about financial goals or emotional needs, not because he doesn't want those things, but because he's quietly asking himself, can I really give her the life she deserves? This internal pressure can push him to extremes. He may bury himself in work, believing that success will silence his fears. He may go overboard with gestures, buying things you didn't ask for or making promises that feel excessive, all in an attempt to convince himself that he's measuring up. The irony is that the harder he tries to prove his worth, the more disconnected you may feel. His constant effort can leave you wondering why he's always chasing more achievement, more control, more certainty, when what you really want is simply him. This is where understanding becomes powerful. When a man feels pressure to be enough, what he craves most isn't praise, it's belief. He needs to know that you see his efforts, even if they're imperfect. He needs to feel that you trust his intentions, even when he's unsure of himself. Instead of confronting him with frustration, meet his doubt with reassurance. Remind him, not with words alone, but with your presence, that he doesn't have to overcompensate to matter. When he works late to secure a future for both of you, acknowledge his dedication. When he hesitates before making a decision, let him know you trust his judgment. This isn't about feeding his ego. It's about giving him the one thing he's afraid to ask for: the quiet reassurance that he's already enough. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from within, that confidence isn't found in proving yourself to others, but in mastering your own mind. When you show him that you value his presence, more than his performance, that his worth isn't defined by achievements, wealth, or status, you offer him something powerful: peace. In that peace, he'll stop striving so hard to be enough, and instead start showing up as the man he truly is, not out of pressure, but out of confidence. When he feels secure in your presence, he won't need to force his way into your life. He'll step forward naturally, knowing that who he is, without the pressure to impress, is exactly what you've wanted all along. 8. His vulnerability is a sign of deep trust. Most men don't reveal their fears easily. They're taught to be strong, to stay composed, to hold everything together, even when they're breaking inside. So when a man opens up, when he shows you his insecurities, his doubts, or his regrets, it's not weakness, it's courage. Vulnerability doesn't come naturally for most men. It feels like stepping into the unknown without armor. To let you see his fears, his failures, or his pain means trusting you with the parts of himself he spent years trying to hide. He may talk about the pressure he feels at work, not to complain, but because he's quietly afraid of letting you down. He may admit that he struggles to keep up with your ambitions, not because he's jealous, but because he's scared you'll outgrow him. He may share memories from his past, stories of mistakes, heartbreak, or loss, not because he wants pity, but because he wants you to understand what shaped him. These moments are easy to overlook, especially if they're wrapped in humor or brushed off with a casual, "It's no big deal." Yet those words often hide something deeper, a silent question. Can I trust you with this part of me? A man who loves you deeply may hesitate before letting you see his most vulnerable side, not because he doubts you, but because letting someone in feels like giving up control, and for many men, that's terrifying. He spent years learning to mask his emotions, convincing himself that being strong means staying silent. So when he finally lets you in, he's breaking a pattern that's been wired into him for years. The weight of that decision is heavier than you might realize. When a man reveals his fears, he's not just trusting you, he's risking something. He's risking rejection, misunderstanding, or judgment. That's why your response matters. If he opens up about something painful and you dismiss it, minimize it, or respond with frustration, he may shut down again and stay closed off for a long time. Not because he's angry, but because he's telling himself, "I knew this was a mistake." But when you respond with warmth, when you acknowledge his feelings without trying to fix them, something powerful happens. He feels safe. Stoic wisdom teaches that true strength lies in mastering your emotions, not ignoring them. When a man shares his vulnerability with you, he's showing strength in its purest form, the courage to face what scares him and trust that you won't turn away. This is why vulnerability is often a turning point in relationships. The man who once seemed guarded begins to open up more. The man who seemed distant starts reaching for you without hesitation. He no longer feels like he has to prove himself or hide his doubts. He's no longer filtering his words out of fear. Instead, he's giving you the most honest version of himself, unpolished, imperfect, but real. And when he feels seen in those moments, when he knows you accept him not just for his strengths, but for his struggles, that's when his love deepens. So if he shares a story about his past, listen. If he admits he's unsure about the future, don't rush to offer solutions. If he reveals something he's ashamed of, meet him with understanding, not judgment. Vulnerability doesn't always arrive as a dramatic confession. Sometimes it's as simple as him asking for your opinion when he normally wouldn't, or quietly admitting, "I'm tired," after weeks of pretending everything's fine. These moments may seem small, but they carry weight. Because when a man loves you enough to drop his guard, what he's really saying is this: I trust you with the parts of me I've kept hidden from everyone else. And when you respond with patience, with kindness, and with quiet reassurance, you become the place where he finally feels safe enough to be himself. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, wrapped in moments that don't feel obvious at first. The man who pulls away isn't always losing interest. The one who overcompensates isn't always trying to impress you. And the one who stays silent may be battling emotions too heavy to put into words. His fear of losing you, his struggle to express love, his attempts to be enough, and his moments of vulnerability, they're not signs of weakness. They're signs of just how deeply he cares. A man who loves you isn't just giving you his time or affection. He's investing his pride, his confidence, and his sense of purpose. And sometimes, that comes with hesitation, self-doubt, or moments where his efforts seem misplaced. The most powerful thing you can do isn't to fix him. It's to understand him. To see beyond his silence, his mistakes, or his insecurities, and recognize the love that's hidden inside those moments. So start noticing the small things. The way he listens when you talk about your day. The way he quietly supports you when you're feeling overwhelmed. The way he shows up, even when he's unsure if he's doing it right. And when you see those signs, acknowledge them. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet reassurance. Because for a man in love, knowing that you see him, that you believe in him, and that you choose him, that's what makes his love stronger than words ever could. Now it's your turn. Which of these signs have you seen in your relationship? Which ones surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear.